Tonight we are in the desert of southern Jordan, and we are looking for a relatively large species of camel spider, or sun spider, belonging to the genus Othoes. And all we have to do is search around the sand and the bushes, and we should be able to see several. They aren't really rare by any means. We have a mantis under this branch here. And this is a species that I've wanted to see for quite some time. This is the Thistle Mantis. This species is called Blepharopsis mendica, and in addition to being called the Thistle Mantis, it's also sometimes referred to as the Egyptian flower mantis. This is quite a widespread species of mantis. It is found throughout North Africa, the Middle East, and all the way to West India. This species is monotypic, and its closest relative in Jordan are mantises in the genus Empusa, or more commonly known as the conehead mantises. I also want to show you the interior surfaces of the coxae on the forelimbs here. They're dark blue with some white speckling. After the ground mantises in the genus Aremiophila, these are the most common species in southern Jordan, but if we're not counting any terrestrials, this one is at the top. I've been seeing a lot of Utheke from this species on the plants around here. They tend to be deposited in the largest bushes that are found around here. They are fairly easy to spot, however, because they're relatively brightly colored, almost white. We have our first Othoes camel spider here on this dune, quite a large one too. This one doesn't seem to be too reactive, though I'm sure if I put it back down, it'll go quite quickly. Yeah, there it goes. This first Othoes that we're looking at right now is an adult male, and we should be able to see some females tonight as well. Normally both of them are active during July. In the habitat that I'm in right now, these could be the largest camel spider species, and if not, that title would belong to Galeotes. While Galeotes can have some pretty long setae or hairs on its legs, an interesting difference with these Othoes is that their legs are more finely and densely hirsute, kind of similar to the fluffy camel spiders, Paragaleotes. And much like those two genera that I just mentioned, these do fluoresce quite brightly under UV light, these ones turning quite yellow, much like Paragaleotes. I should say, since we've found our first one, there's very little known about this genus. The genus was described in 1911, and today it contains a total of 5 species, the last one having been described 57 years ago. They live throughout the Arabian Peninsula into North Africa, all the way to Mauritania, and throughout this distribution, as you might have guessed, they live in sandy areas. They are semaphilic, and they prefer sand dunes over sand sheets, but they will live in both. We have a Stenodactylus doriae gecko down here in the sand. This is the Middle Eastern short-fingered gecko. It's a species that I've seen before coming to Jordan. I encountered them in the United Arab Emirates a couple years ago, and they were the gecko that I had seen the most times. Really quite common in some areas. This is a species that's almost entirely restricted to sandy areas, mostly in expansive dune habitats, and they're found throughout the Arabian Peninsula through to Iran. And this one that we have here, unsurprisingly, is a juvenile, and these juveniles tend to be more ornate than the adults are. The adults can actually get quite large. From snout to vent, they can attain a length of over 8 centimeters. This species of gecko digs out its own burrow. This is why they have fringed fingers, and during the daytime, they close these burrows off, simply by pushing sand from the inside to the entrance. We have an Anthia duodecimguttata down here on the ground, something I don't really want to touch, but here's my boot for size reference. And if I put my hand in front of it, that shouldn't be an issue. I'll explain that in a bit. The reason I'm being cautious with this beetle is because it might have the ability to spray formic acid. This is something that Anthia sexmaculata, or the 6-spotted ground beetle, is able to do, and this is the sister species of the beetle that we're looking at right now. And this formic acid spray isn't something trivial like that of a blister beetle. It can actually be quite serious. All of the information I'm going to present here is specifically for Anthia sexmaculata, but I just want you to keep in mind that it might also be true for Anthia duodecimguttata. The concentration of this spray is 98%, but from my understanding, quite a large amount is used as well. I'll describe the effects of it in a moment, but first I want to mention that this spray is lipophobic. It doesn't affect chitin, which means that it can't be used on other arthropods. And the reason for this is because the predators of Anthia species tend to be mammals, specifically rodents. And sometimes it's humans that end up being the victims of this formic acid spray, which over the course of weeks causes a spot of necrosis that is several centimeters in diameter. I will link a paper on one such case in the description of this video if anyone wants to read further. I have personally observed what I believe to be the effects of this beetle spray on someone here, specifically someone I met the first day that I arrived in southern Jordan, and the infection does look quite serious. According to the people here, cases like this show up consistently in and around the village. The real kicker, however, is that you might not even feel this spray, and on top of that, it could take 2 days before symptoms show up. We have another Othoes here on the ground, also another adult. This second Othoes that we have is a female as opposed to the last one, and the reason I can tell is because of those classic female sulfugid proportions. The legs are relatively shorter compared to the body, and this one has a fatty. And this one that we have is perhaps a bit smaller than the male that we found. That being said, it's probably still eating geckos, especially ones of the size that we saw, but the majority of its diet is likely made up of other arthropods. As for their predators, there's a very good chance that they're most often eaten by scorpions, especially the more common ones like Androctonus. And these are opportunistic to the degree that they exhibit cannibalism, even between individuals of the same size. You can tell that this female that we have here is a little bit less hirsute than the male that we found, and because of this, it doesn't fluoresce as brightly under ultraviolet light, especially on the chelicerae, or around the head. Speaking of color, throughout many of the regions that these Othoes live in, they are the only camel spiders that are quite yellow or orange. And this combination of a yellow or orange body with these bicolor pedipalps are fairly unique to Othoes, but not entirely. You can see right now she's digging. This is a common response that camel spiders have to being exposed to light. Down in here is a Dericorys albidula. That is a species of grasshopper, and this one is actually on its host plant that I'll talk about here in a minute. And as I'm recording, it'll probably start munching on some of these leaves. This grasshopper has quite a wide distribution. It's found in North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia. It ranges as far west as Algeria, and possibly goes as far east as westernmost China at the border of Kazakhstan. This species overwinters as an egg, hatches in March, and develops until May. This is the period of time during which its host plant, Anabassis articulata, has fresh growth. This is what the nymphs like to feed on most. They develop exclusively on this host plant until they reach the final instar, after which they might migrate to the ground or to another plant. The adults of this species live as late as October of the same year. These like to live in sandy areas where Anabassis articulata is found, but according to one paper, these two factors are not enough to indicate the presence or lack of the presence of this species in a particular area. While this species is typically uncommon, masses of these grasshoppers have been recorded in Saudi Arabia, and apparently, in addition to this, populations of these grasshoppers will devastate Haloxylon plants in Central Asia from time to time. If I recall correctly, that is a narrow-leafed shrub or tree. I thought we would take a short break from looking at animals. There's something up here that I want to show you, and that is these pits. Well, this one isn't much of a pit. Look, one of our camel spiders is right there on the ground, but we'll look at some of the other ones later. This one's kind of small. Then, right over here, we have another one of these pits. This one larger and more well-defined. And there's also one right here. It isn't animals that are digging out these pits, but rather humans. This area actually has a bit of an issue with grave diggers or grave robbers. People come to these mountains, not just the area that I'm in, and they're basically looking for artifacts. In a 1 kilometer stretch from this place that we're in right now, There's actually several more of these that you can see along the mountains. From what I understand, these are graves of Nabataeans. Many of them were buried with valuables, and they're really quite old. If I'm not mistaken, these are from the 1st century and before. Every so often I bump into the people who dig these holes. They dig them at night because, as you can imagine, it is an illegal activity. Concerning the Blepharopsis mendica, or Thistle Mantis that we saw earlier, there's another one right down here. This one is a subadult. I say subadult, but more realistically, it's probably a half size. And there's a good chance that because of that, this one is behind schedule, so to speak. That being said, I'm not sure how long it has left until it's matured. Anyway, the reason that I stopped to look at this one, despite the fact that we've already looked at the adult, is because I wanted to show you the color difference between the two. You'll notice that this one is darker. While this difference could be attributed to variation within a population, Blepharopsis mendica that start out dark typically lighten up into the colors that we saw on the adult. Practically all of them undergo a color shift. Under my hand here, I have a tiny little camel spider. Oh, looks like it escaped. And this is what I suspect to be the juvenile of the Othoes that we're seeing. As you might have guessed yourself, it is quite difficult to identify them if they are this small. You can't see the tooth structure, the proportions might not hold up, and you can't really see patterns in spines or setae. And of course, one of the most obvious, you can't rely on colors when they're this small. What I do know, however, is that this is some kind of galeotid, and if it isn't Othoes, there's a good chance that it's Galeodopsis. Quick side note, if it is indeed Galeodopsis, it might keep this color scheme its entire life. As you can tell, this one is quite tiny. I've actually been seeing quite a few camel spiders of this size. At this point, I've probably seen 30, and the vast majority of those have been on the rocks, and I don't think that's the same species as these ones that I'm finding on the sand. This one is almost certainly a second instar, which indicates that it's from this year. There's a Tropiocolotes yomtovi down here on the ground. That is this gecko that we're looking at right here. And you can see that it isn't very large. More on that in a bit. This gecko and other species in the genus Tropiocolotes are most commonly referred to as dwarf geckos, but also sometimes as pygmy geckos. And this particular one doesn't have a very large distribution. It lives in Sinai, southern Jordan, and far western Saudi Arabia. It was quite recently described, in 2022 actually, and as a split from Tropiocolotes nattereri, which I believe might still be a species complex. This is potentially the smallest species of gecko in the far south of Jordan. This is not too surprising considering their common name. Their body length, excluding the tail, does not exceed a few centimeters in length. The one that we have here is an adult, and this is quite likely sexually mature. Speaking of which, something kind of interesting about the genus Tropiocolotes, these geckos have a clutch size of only 1 egg at a time. Like a few of the other gecko species that live around here, it seems that these are not only terrestrial, but sometimes inhabit rock walls. I've only seen 3 of these at this point, and it was the first one that I saw that was 1 meter above the ground. We have an Akis subtricostata beetle down here walking around in the sand. And we'll take a look at it in a moment, but right down here are the tracks. We can't see them very well with the angle of my current light. Here they are. Some over here too. These Akis beetles are a species of Darkling Beetle, which means that they belong to the family Tenebrionidae, and this genus specifically is known for its laterally expanded pronotum. I'm referring to these kinds of wings on the thorax. While there are several species of Akis that have ridges on their elytra, not many have these tubercles that Akis subtricostata has. Around here, this is one of the more common species of Darkling Beetles. Among the nocturnal Darkling Beetles, this is the one that I've encountered the second most, after Trachyderma hispida, which is a species that I found in my sock a couple days ago with my foot, but luckily it wasn't harmed. And this Akis subtricostata actually has a discount version of itself wandering around here as well, and that is beetles in the genus Scaurus, which aren't too uncommon either. Among all of the Darkling Beetle species that I've ever seen, this one is one of the most convincing at feigning death. We have a Huntsman Spider down here. This one is in the genus Eusparassus. I'm not too sure which species of Eusparassus this is, but it might be Eusparassus walckenaeri. This is one of the two dominant huntsman spider species that's out here. The other one is Cerbalus, and that one is larger than this one. Cerbalus is fully terrestrial. Meanwhile, these are often found on rock walls and in crevices, though the majority of the time they're encountered on the ground, like the one that we found. The genus Eusparassus is distributed across Africa, parts of southern Europe, and the Middle East. If this one is indeed Eusparassus walckenaeri, then its distribution is from the Levant to the South Balkans. The genus Eusparassus is quite diverse, containing about 30 species, and the majority of them, like this one, inhabit arid lands, mostly deserts and scrublands. Especially in areas where these are common, these can be frequently encountered in man-made structures. Another one of these Eusparassus that I've seen had a regenerated leg, and it seems that in this genus, a substantial amount of original pigmentation is lost, more so than on other huntsman spider species. We have our fourth and final camel spider down here. This Othoes that we have is a female, and I'm glad that we found this one in particular because it is a little bit ambiguous. You can see that its abdomen is quite small compared to the Prosoma, and this kind of throws off the proportions in general. But one thing that you can look for on camel spiders that's a little bit more definitive to tell male from female is the malleoli. Those are the appendages on the hind legs on the ventral surface that I like to refer to as the mushrooms. And I'm pretty sure that these are unique to camel spiders. We're looking at this female's malleoli right now, but I also took a video of the males, and you can tell that they are quite a bit larger than that of the females. This is also how you tell male from female in scorpions. Male pectins, which are the equivalent appendage, are much larger than that of females. Both of these organs serve the same purpose. They are chemoreceptors, picking up on signals on the ground. Because this one is a little bit on the thin side, I'm going to feed it an antlion before I let it go. This is the same insect that the other female was eating, but that one had just been attracted to my light while I was filming, and the camel spider managed to catch it. The other one was obviously already quite well fed, unlike this one. Well, the moon is peeking over the mountain, so I think that is all of the Othoes camel spiders that we are going to see tonight, and I'm going to end this video here. So, thank you for watching.